As most of you watching this video already know, my channel is all about how the biblical descriptions of the Antichrist match one Donald J. Trump. However, a fairly common objection I've received over the past couple of years is that Trump is simply too old to be the Antichrist. That objection is based on the belief that we most likely still have a few years to go before the return of Jesus, and Trump would be well into his 80s when that happens. After all, although we are now in the last days, there is still much in front of us as well, and that's true. Many prophetic events have yet to happen, from the arrival of the false prophet on the scene, to the great earthquake of Revelation 6, to the third temple being built, to the mark of the beast being instituted worldwide. None of those prophecies, and many others, have come to pass. So it's fair to wonder how many more years are left for this old planet. Is it 5 years, 7 years, or perhaps even 10 years or more? And if it's that long, wouldn't the age of the Antichrist come into consideration, especially if that person is already well into their later years? So let's talk about this for a moment. Is it fair to say that Donald J. Trump is too old to be the Antichrist? After all, he turned 76 years old this past summer, is very overweight, and from all reports, does not eat a healthy diet. Well, if we look a bit closer, the idea that Trump is too old to be the Antichrist is based on 4 mistaken beliefs. The first mistake is believing that the Bible even says anything about the Antichrist being a younger or more attractive figure. That's simply not true, but it is a common belief because of fictionalized accounts of the last days, such as the Left Behind books and various Hollywood movies. Those made-up versions of what will happen always seem to portray the Antichrist as young, attractive, charismatic, and even loved by everyone. But none of those things are biblical, despite the fact that many Christians think they are. In essence, many Christians are believing in a false Antichrist. The second mistake is believing that Trump himself is too old to last many more years. While Trump is certainly getting up there in years and is clearly overweight, he doesn't smoke or drink alcohol and, as a former president, is getting the very best medical care. Speaking of his weight, it should also be noted that the Bible does give us one interesting description of the Antichrist, which is that his look was more stout than his fellows. In this context, looking stout means having an appearance of being heavy-set, which is certainly Trump. The third mistake is not understanding how life expectancy has so greatly improved in recent decades, even doubling what it was just 150 years ago. As a byproduct of this increased life expectancy, more and more people are able to work and live productively well into their 70s and 80s. Because many older people are productive into their later years, it should stand to reason that there is simply nothing preventing the Antichrist from also being an older person. If anything, his decades of experience would likely aid him in achieving more power on the world scene. The fourth mistake is in thinking that we definitely have many more years to go before the return of Jesus. While I'm of the opinion that there could be 8 to 10 more years before the second coming, this time span could be way off, and we could be looking at something more along the lines of 3 to 5 years. In fact, the Bible even talks about the last days being shortened for the elect's sake. How much shortened is tough to tell, but the verse would seem to imply that we have a lot less time left than some of us might think. Finally, let's talk about the elephant in the room. Is Trump even smart enough to be the Antichrist? If there's one criticism of Trump that's almost universal among his detractors, it's that he's a fool, even a complete idiot. As evidence of this, many will simply point to Trump's own statements as a reflection of his limited ability to understand things. By contrast, Trump has the complete opposite assessment of his own mental faculty, referring to himself as a genius on several occasions. And there are those who support him who also think he's brilliant, and that he's constantly playing 4-dimensional chess in order to outwit his opponents. Personally, I think the idea that Trump is brilliant or is playing 4D chess or any other game is absurd. There's simply no evidence that he's outwitting others or getting what he wants because of a superior intellect. That doesn't mean, however, that Trump is an idiot or that he doesn't possess at least average or even above average intelligence. Some of the most famous and successful people in history were of average intelligence, and that was never an obstacle of any kind. In Trump's case, he can absolutely seem to be unintelligent at times, and it's often because of how crudely he speaks and how ignorant he is on many subjects. But again, being crude and ignorant doesn't automatically equate to being unintelligent. If we put aside Trump's ignorance and crudeness, and remember that he views the world through the lens of his own ego, we're left with a man who is likely of average to above average intelligence. He's not the genius he claims to be, but neither is he the idiot that some would portray him as. Importantly, the Bible also does not say anything about the Antichrist being brilliant. Some do get that impression because it mentions his various exploits and how he will succeed in all that he does. But again, someone of average intelligence can also do all of those things. The Bible does, however, give us one key insight into the intelligence of the Antichrist. That verse is Daniel 8:23, which reads as follows, "And in the latter time of their kingdom, when the transgressors are come to the full, a king of fierce countenance and understanding dark sentences shall stand up." The words understanding dark sentences, or as the New King James translation renders it, understanding sinister schemes, is a window into the innate intelligence of the Antichrist. He simply knows how to scheme. He is a master of intrigue. This is the only Bible verse that references the intelligence of the Antichrist, and it's teaching us that he will be brilliant at one thing, intrigue. And intrigue is defined as machination, which is a scheming or crafty action or artful design intended to accomplish some usually evil end. In a way, it's almost as if the Antichrist will be a savant, in that his ability to scheme, his mastery of intrigue, is the only intellectual trait given to us. And yet it perfectly describes not only his limited understanding, but the power he wields and why he is able to succeed in all that he does. Intrigue was a hallmark of the Trump presidency and has continued on in the nearly 2 years since he reluctantly left office. His sinister schemes to seek revenge and to even stay in power were as deliberate in his political life as they were previously in his business career. And while Trump's scheming didn't successfully keep him in office after the 2020 election, make no mistake about it, he has learned a lot in the last couple of years, including getting his hardcore supporters into many political positions around the country. Because he is a master of intrigue, he will work deceitfully and will cause deceit to prosper under his rule. His failure to stay in power after the 2020 election loss is just more fuel for him to continue his sinister schemes and destroy those who get in his way. Here's the bottom line. The Bible gives us numerous descriptions of the Antichrist, and in order for Donald Trump to perfectly match them all, he just has to be himself. Thank you for watching, and if videos about the Antichrist are of interest to you, please consider subscribing to my channel. And don't forget to click on the notification bell so you don't miss future updates. If you care to leave a comment, please do. As always, kindly be respectful in what you say, especially towards those with whom you disagree. Thanks again, and I'll talk to you guys soon.